What's up, all you cool kids? This is Daisy Collins of TsunamiRose.net, coming at you live from my craft room here in Las Vegas, Nevada, on an improvised live. I usually don't go live on the weekends, but I have been. I was supposed to go live yesterday to decorate my Christmas junk journal, but I've been so preoccupied with doing this instead that I kind of I'll get back to that on Monday. But so what I've been doing is, hey Patricia, what's up? I have been sewing fabric onto receipt paper. I saw this video on using receipt paper as a foundation, and I have a bunch of this. I bought I think 5 or 6 rolls of this at the thrift shop. And so of course I've been trying to find uses for it. So here's one use is making sewing on the fabric onto it. And once you're done, once you want to use the fabric, you just rip the paper. You just tug the paper and it rips right off. So I'm excited about that. So that's what I've been doing. Hey Letitia, have a good day, girl. So that's what I've been doing, and yesterday I spent most of my evening cutting out fabric because I didn't have that many scraps. The beginning of them I did do scraps, but then I decided, you know what, let me just cut up some of my fabric. So there's different sizes of receipt paper. Karen, hi Karen and Aaron. Hey, that rhymes. What is up? Hi, Minxie. What's up, y'all? So there's different sizes of receipt paper. This one's 2 inches and some change, 2 1/4 or so. So that's what we're working with. I wish I had a wider one, like a 3-inch. There's also 3 inches, which would be nice on this type of project. But you know what? That's okay. Eventually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain them together, like so, to make a cover for my junk journals. So this is for junk journals. I don't know if anybody's watching for any other reason, but this is for junk journals, and I'm using bed sheets like I normally do. On my projects, these are bed sheets that I have purchased from thrift stores mostly. Also some that are from my personal past. These 2 were in my mother's backyard in a bag for a while. I don't even know how long. But anyways, and the rest I found online, and I'm going to eventually chain all these together. I have been busy working on this. I've just been obsessed. So I've just been making them. So that's what I'm going to continue to do for a little bit now. I'm going to go ahead and put those off to the side. Because these, and I have to iron these. I still have to iron all these. I've just been sewing them. Ironing is kind of another step. And I'll do that soon. I just didn't want to do that today. So I have a bunch of Shabby Chic fabric here. And I cut them for my receipt to be about 3 inches. And then I can trim them up in the next step. And so 3 inch usually by 2 or 2 1/4 or 2 1/2. That's what I've been cutting them as high. So I have a nice selection here. I took a bit of this and a bit of that for my fabric scrap stash. Okay, so here is my sewing machine. And what I'm going to start off with is one piece of fabric that I am just going to sew on the left side. So that way it gives me a little start. I can give it a little trim. The next step is to grab our next piece of fabric and lay it right sides together on the right hand side. And we're going to go ahead and sew this. And I have my sewing machine set to straight stitch, and we are going to use the default setting. So we're using the really, really close straight stitch. And the size of seam that you use, that's up to you. So you don't have to, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't even have to be straight if you don't want it to be straight. and the size of the seam doesn't matter. So that's, of course, no, that's why I like this project. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna fold the fabric here to the right, and I kind of like tug on it a little bit, you know, so that way it has a nice press. And then we're gonna do the same thing. Lay the next piece of fabrics right side together. And I'm not using a back stitch or anything like that. And I am also using, for junk journals, the type of thread doesn't matter. So I buy this nice pack of threads from Amazon. They're always linked in my description box. But for this project right here in particular, the color thread doesn't matter. So I'm kind of using up bobbins that I have just laying around. And I have just been like obsessively doing this. And I just kind of work with a piece of paper here. See, this size of this cutting mat is what I'm using as my base for all of my junk journals. Like, this is pretty much a good piece for one of my junk journal covers. So that's why I always make everything pretty much the size of this mat. So I cut my receipt paper to the size of this mat. A little bit bigger, actually, so I can give myself some time to cut them down exactly to the size of this mat. You could continuously work off this rope, but it's just a little hard to maneuver. So I just work with strips that are the size of the junk journal that I want to do, or that I know to do. And I do run my nail. You can see there the indentation. I do run my nail the opposite way that the paper wants to curl, and then it just lays straight. It's just a little step to kind of make the paper lay a little bit flatter. Okay. So let me lay my next fabric. Of course, you can do this with scraps if you have fabric scraps, but I really don't have that many fabric scraps that I can do this technique with. I'm going to be left with a bunch of pieces like this. So maybe I'll try crumb quilting, which is when you make really, really small patchwork. I have not tried really, really small patchwork, but maybe I will have to. Okay, so I'm laying my next piece of fabric here. And then while they're also together, I do kind of also, oh wait, not this part, this one's fine. I was going to say, for this next part, I like to kind of poke. See, what did I do? I laid it too far. See, that's fine. For this part, I'm going to stitch right on top of it, so I'm not really sure. Oh, I see what I did. What am I doing? I'm like sewing. I sewed 3 pieces on here. I'm chalking. I'm losing it. Hang on. I don't know what I was even thinking right there. I literally sewed 3 pieces on top of each other while I was talking. My goodness. Okay. I'm just kind of going to lay this on top of each other like that and just pretend that that never happened. Oh my goodness. What am I on? It's okay. We can fix it. And we'll sew this receipt back together at the same time. Okay. Okay, so what I was trying to say is that right here I do try and tug it a little bit. Even when I'm sewing on it, I try to pull on it a little bit. Oh my gosh, that was a disaster. Good thing I'm not on camera or recording. Okay, let me get this little... I try not to put fabrics next to each other that are the same if I can help it. I do have a nice selection of fabrics, so that's not really an issue for me. I was just talking, having fun. 3 layers, girl. Okay, so here we go. And you can see right here where I made the mistake. I kind of like sewed the receipt paper back together. It happens. It happens. So I'm going to pull on this fabric. Grab my next fabric. And I do have to iron, but I'll do that another day. I'm just not interested in ironing today, so I'm just sewing, and I'll make ironing another step. It probably would feel like less steps if I just did everything in one, but sometimes I'm not in the mood to do anything, so I'll iron, and sometimes I'm in the mood to sew, so that's all I'll do. Again, the seam doesn't really matter. So go ahead and use whatever type of seam you want. And for this purpose, I'm not going to put this in a quilt or anything, so I don't really backstitch because all the back of this fabric is going to be glued down, so it'll never be exposed to come out, so I'm not really worried about that. And let's see, I guess some of my fabric isn't really cut to size exactly. So I just grab my scissors. Oh wait, fabric scissors. Sometimes I give it a little cut as I go because it's just too much. See, it's even big enough for another piece. Oh my god, I'm glad I found this because I have been wondering what am I going to do with all this receipt paper, because you think like, oh, you only bought 5-6 rolls till you realize how much that actually is in receipt paper. Hey Monica, welcome. In receipt paper, 5 or 6 rolls is like a lifetime supply. You will never need to buy more receipt paper ever. It's more than one human being can use if you're not using it for receipt paper. It's so much. So I'm thinking maybe I could also make little pockets out of these. Like a couple squares worth of pockets, or even 2 of these would make a little pocket. I could sew, make it look cute. So there's a couple things that I have in mind to do with these for my junk journals. And right now, honestly, I'm just focused on having them and making them. Because this would also be kind of an easier way to make a patchwork junk journal with all that sewing and all that cutting, the cutting steps in between. It'll just make it a little bit easier. Hey Beverly, Monica, what are you making? Right now, I'm just focused on sewing fabric to receipt paper. But eventually, I am going to make this into junk journal covers. Just a different style of junk journal, of a patchwork junk journals. So right now, and I'm also thinking I can make them into pockets eventually. But right now, I am just sewing my fabric to this receipt paper to make strips, and then eventually I'll sew those strips together. Or I'm thinking, like I said, just a couple, like 2 of these little blocks could be, 2 of these little blocks here could be a little pocket for a junk journal. Once I put back this onto paper, once I glue it, or maybe I could, no, this will rip off, so I'll have to basically use my heat and bond to make it into paper that I can make into pockets, basically. Oh, ran out of thread on this bobbin. Cool. Awesome. Yes. So if you have scraps or if you have fabric, cut it up into whatever size your receipt paper is. You can obviously trim it too, but you can use scraps, or I didn't have any scraps. Or once I used up my scraps, I was like, okay, now I need more stuff. So, I mean, I just cut up fabric. When you have bed sheets as fabric, you have a lot. You have that option. I usually do that when I have to do a new project. I'll just go through all my fabric and grab a bunch, make scraps. I don't really have scraps, but I'll do that. See, I have this here. I usually do here, but I have a lot of it. Okay, just using up my bobbins that I already have made. Doesn't really matter the thread. I have yellow thread on top and a pink bobbin, so that's fine too. Okay. We are all loaded up here. I'm trying to make this like sewing machine straight in real life too, but it's like I need it to be crooked to be straight on camera. I don't know. Anyways. Anyways, we are continuing on here, sewing on the fabric. I just want to sew. I just want to feel like I'm doing something. So this is what I decided to do and obsess about currently. There's some projects. Mostly people use this for borders. So, but I decided I'm going to sew it all together. See, here's a smaller strip. This one's not even even. But that's okay. I try to make mine even just because I like the look of evenness as much as I can. I also don't try to worry about it that much. But you can make these all crooked if you wanted to. If you really wanted to, you could. Again, I just try not to put the same fabrics next to each other. And then I'll put these like right here so it's like even. Even though this one's not cut evenly. That looks like fun. It actually is. And then the last piece here, I'll just try and get it to sew through paper at the very, very last part. Okay, see, so that's fine with me. So now the next step, oops. Sorry about the airplane sounds. Okay, so the next step is I have it on my cutting mat. And I have this handy dandy tool here that will help me cut off all the excess. I try and be careful not to cut the paper. But it happens sometimes too. So let me cut off all the excess here. And depending on what size it is, like these little parts, that'll go in the trash. But there's parts like this one I'll probably keep. So I can work on a crumb quilt cover, like a really, really small patchwork. Maybe I'll make one. I don't know about making more than one. That would take a lot of fabric. Again, so I'm keeping this piece right here. And these pieces can go. Okay, so let me see where I cut unevenly right here. I'd rather cut unevenly than cut the paper. Okay. There we go. And over here, I would put it this way. Cut off this side. I love this tool, you guys. If you guys don't have one of these, but you plan on kind of making a couple of these, I would invest in this tool for sure. These are too small, so I'm tossing these. For me, it's too low. Let me see if I can give you guys the code or the affiliate link for that. Where did it go? Here it is. So this is the ruler handle and the 6 by 18 inch ruler. If you wanted to get into it, there's the link for that. And it's also going to be linked in the description box. Okay, so I'm going to cut these bits off here. And these can still be used. So I'm going to keep these pieces except for this one. This one can go. So, okay. And like I said, the last step would be to iron it. So you would iron all this down. And the good thing about this is all your seams are going to go one way because we flipped everything over one way. So when we sew, it should be a pretty easy, smooth sewing experience because everything is already going one way effortlessly. And like I said, this is really easy to tear off because of all the close stitches that we used. Just tears off. And then you have the fabric underneath. But I am going to keep them on this paper because it just makes it easier to put away, really, honestly. It makes it easier to put away, so I will just leave it like this. I'm going to iron it later, and that's the last step. So that's honestly what I've been, like, obsessed making. And now, like I said, my next piece, I am going to cut. I extend it a little bit past the mat on both sides before I just give it a little trim. And then I run, it's curling up here, so I'll run my nail down the bottom and then it lays more flat. So I love that. Very easy. I get my sewing machine back on in front of me. Okay. So here we go, we're back. Hi Kathy, how are you today? So now I'm going to start on the next paper, the next line. And I'm going to put this pretty black fabric. And somehow I turned off my machine. Anyways, so the first fabric, I'm going to sew the left-hand side of it to the receipt paper. And I'm going to sew this with the right side fabric facing up. So that's the first one, though. That's just the first block. And now I'm going to work with the receipt paper facing to the left for the rest of the row. Oh, wait, no, I'm not. I lied. It's going to be to the right. So I'm going to put the fabrics right side facing each other. And I'm going to sew on the right hand side for the rest. Sew on the right hand side for the rest of the I have my sewing machine set to stitch to a straight stitch with default settings. And the size of the seam that you use doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter if it's straight. None of this really has to be straight. I just like the look of something a little bit straighter, so that's why I do this. But you could make it crooked all the way if you wanted to. So I'm going to put the edges of the fabrics here, the next fabric together. I do kind of pull on both fabrics here so that way I can have a nice seam. And this is a really nice, easy project, kind of just work on something while you don't really have to think of any particular design. All of your fabrics could be different, or they could be themed. So if you have some Christmas colored fabrics, you can put them to use. Or if you have like all pink fabrics, you want to make a pink journal, you can go ahead and just do all pink fabrics. Or you can make a little scrappy one and have all of the fabrics be different shapes. Mine here, like I said, I cut them all into blocks. All into nice even squares and rectangles. Those are really the shapes that I used. Thank you so much, Patricia. Here. So here's where I try and make it even. One fabric is not really cut evenly, but the other fabric is. So I will use a straight fabric to kind of tell me where the straight edge would be. And I try and make it look straighter. It could be a little more crooked, but I just want nice, pretty little blocks, right? At least for me. And again, I like scrapbooking. I like quilting techniques. I like the ones where I don't have to be perfectly straight. I like the ones that don't have to be even or have any sort of seam that has to match up, because all that's just too much for me. So I try and be a little bit more I lean towards more the easy quilting, what I call easy for me as a beginner to try, and this happens to be one of them. And I really like the look, and when I sew them all together, I'll of course do that live, but for right now, I'm just worried about these little blocks right here, these few lines that I'm making, and just being happy that I'm using up some receipt paper. Just being happy about that is good for me right now. And I just like the look of all my fabrics put together. I have some new fabrics in here, some old fabrics that I'm running out of. I'm almost out of this one right here, if I'm not out of it already. It's just a nice way if you have some meaningful fabrics. I had a viewer say that their mother passed away in April, and they said that they have some of her bed sheets and that they're going to make a journal out of it. And I was like, oh, it's a great way to honor her memory, you know? So you can make this a little bit more meaningful than I do. Use old clothes, etc. That'd be a good idea too. Old clothes, t-shirts, such and such would be a good idea. Okay. So let's do the next part. None of these little strips are really wider than 2 inches because I wanted to get a nice selection on each row. Have a nice mix of fabric. Sorry about the airplanes. I live right next to an airport. Literally next to an airport. So what are you gonna do? You gonna buy me a new house? Thank you. I'm going to put another one of these black fabrics here because I love it so much. This is the only one I try and repeat sometimes. I love this black fabric. It's so pretty. Like that. And flip it to the right. We're ready for the next one. This piece, I'm going to cut it down first. Wow. That was a hard stop. Okay. just gonna cut it off like that. You don't have to, you can cut it off later. You just cut down your fabric to a little bit bigger than your receipt paper. Which for me was 3 inches. No, 2.25, I said. I said 2 and some change. I forgot. I wanted the one that, there's another receipt paper that's bigger. That would have liked. Oops. Here's our last piece. And originally I was going to make this into another step, cutting it down. Like, I just want to sew right now. But I'll do it for y'all too. I'll do it as I go along, which is a good idea, actually, if you plan on doing a lot of these. Okay, so let me put this way. Get my tool out. I love this thing so much. And I'm trying to go the whole length of it. Oops. It moved. Why did it move? Okay. Again, this block is kind of worth saving for a crumb quilt. And these parts are not. For me, anyways. I don't want to make it that small. It's a little extreme. I think only this one's worth saving. Of course, any project where you use scraps, you're going to end up with more scraps. It just never ends. It never ends, but I love it because these fabrics make me so happy. So I'm happy to keep using them until they're done. Which could take a while because I'm always left with little crumbs. So that's trash. If you didn't have one of these, you can cut them with scissors. You could also, for what I used for a long time, were my Sizzix plates, my big shop plates. And here's this beautiful row. I love the look of these put together, and like just the thought of like what they would look like, all nice and laid out. Since all the fabrics are different, they are gonna look so pretty. Let me just lay it out because it makes me feel pretty accomplished. So I'm going to, you can either make your cover go this way, or you can make your cover go this way, right? I mean, that's up to you. But I've already pretty much made enough for one cover, I think. Of course, they've got to be wider than this, longer than this. But don't you think that's going to be such a cute cover? Like, I can't even wait. Like, look how fun that looks. Normally, people use these for borders. But like I said, I'm going to put them all together. And the rows are probably going to be only about 1 inch and so. So all of these will also shrink down. So I'm just going to keep on making them this size. So that way I can cut them for journals. So it's exciting and they look so cute, you guys. Don't they look adorable? And of course you can keep following my channel. So you see what these eventually end up. Just sometimes I have this like calling to just do one thing over and over, and I'll figure out what I use them for later. And the thing right now is sewing all these onto my receipt papers. I'm just having a good old time. Just having some fun. Okay. Thank you, Minxie. I think they're gonna look cute. And of course, I'm left with all these scraps here from cutting the fabric down to these little squares. And of course, we're gonna end up sewing all these little bits together to make another smaller patchwork journal because I'm just obsessed with patchwork journals right now. Just kind of obsessed, just a little bit. I'm very easy to joy and it's worth it, right? Okay, so we're back. Let me cut another row here of receipt paper. And I hear it doesn't matter what kind of receipt paper you use. I heard some receipt paper, I can't remember what they called it, but some of it like turns blue when you iron it. So don't be surprised if that happens to you. So now, like I said, the first piece of fabric we sew on facing up. And I'm trying to leave a little bit of paper here so I can cut it later, instead of trying to put it up to here. And I'm just using a straight stitch with default settings here. Next following piece of fabric, we'll put facing together. And we're going to sew to the right from now on. Hi, Denise. Okay, so I'm going to pull it off to the right. Try and make it straight. At least that's what I like. You can keep them going crooked. But for me, I like the straight look. And you can make a whole bunch of like really skinny rows also. Really skinny pieces of fabric. I just like them to be a little thicker. I prefer 2 inches. We still get a nice variety of fabrics on a row. Pull the fabric off to the right. And let's sew the next one. These ones are too large. I'm gonna cut them. It's so nice right now. I can have the AC turned off. Just have the window open, door open. It's really nice. It's really nice right now. And then I'm going to pull this fabric off to the right. And again, I'm going to iron some other time. I'll iron at a different time. It's freezing here? No, not here, not yet. I heard it's supposed to get cold at night, but it has not been cold yet. So I don't know when they say that's going to happen. Because it has not happened. We don't get snow or anything here, so I don't have to deal with that kind of cold. $46. Yeah, it gets to 40 degrees here at night during winter time. Just at night. During the day, it's like 50-ish, I guess. On a couple days, it gets a little colder, but the coldest it gets here is 40. Which is why I like it here. I can deal with the heat, and I don't like the cold, so. And I don't like humidity, so I am not going down south. And Arizona to me is hotter. It's only like 5 degrees hotter, but that's too much for me. I have family out there and I just don't like it. It's too hot. And it's hot out here and that's too hot for me. Once you get to Florida, all those places, it's too humid and I can't deal with that. I can deal with heat. I cannot deal with humidity. I just can't. And even if it's slightly hotter, my God, you can feel it. You can really feel the difference. Oh my goodness. Again, I'm just trying not to put fabrics that are the same together. And I'm sewing on the receipt paper because it's called a foundation paper or something. Just makes it easier to sew on. I'm sure there's other scientific reasons. Very scientific. See, right now I'm going to put a little bit of a skinnier strip here because the other ones have been kind of wide. So let's put kind of a skinny. Oh, here's a little bit thinner strip here. That's the only thing I kind of look out for is that I use a couple, thicker pieces and then some thinner pieces in between. Not just like consecutively large pieces. I could probably do a roll of all large pieces. That'd probably look cool in the end product. Anything below 10 Celsius here is cold for us. Anything above 20, we melt. You might not like my summers. Don't move to Las Vegas or Arizona. Oh, Minxie, I have a question. Okay, so you're from the UK, correct? I mean, it says so in your title. It says so in your name. So I have a question. So I know your guys' TV is I know the UK TV is broadcasted by the BBC. So my question is all your television put up by the BBC, or do you have like independent channels from out there that you can still purchase? You know what I mean? Like from like UK made TV that you can like purchase aside from BBC stuff, or is it everything is done by the BBC? Like everything. That's my question. Very deep question. I've been watching the baking show, the British, the Bake Off, what's it called? Great British Bake Off. And I was just wondering, like, is it all BBC? Like everything is BBC, or maybe they have like private channels out there? That's my question. I think I need to know. Because my husband asked, like, well, what's the prize? He's like, what's the prize again? Because normally, on channels where there's prizes, they tell you literally at the beginning of every episode, they'll tell you the prize, they'll remind you. He's like, what is their prize? And I was like, I think it's a cake stand. Like, for all this trouble, and they get a cake stand, and it's just like confusing to me. Because also when I watched RuPaul's Drag Race, when it was in the UK, normally it has $100,000 prize for the winner, and in the UK version, they got a pin, like they got a crown. And like they didn't get any cash money. They got like the opportunity to work with the producers on something. And normally they win cash money. So Minxie says we have BBC and BBC Two, then ITV, which is channel 3. Channel 4 and Channel 5, those are like the most basic standard TV channels. So Channel 3, Channel 4, and Channel 5, if you want anything else, you have to purchase from big companies like Sky, Virgin Media. So like Channel 3, 4, and 5, those are not run by the BBC. I'll keep this little piece. The rest have to go. Nope, but still free channels. Okay. Okay, because I was like, everything has to be by the, like, everything you watch out there is by the BBC. Like, that's kind of crazy. Sorry about the planes. I guess they're back in, they're back in use. For a minute there, it was really quiet with plane activity, which is weird for me. Like I said, I live next to the airport. Hi, Jen. How are you? I'm going to keep working on this for a little bit longer. But I have been working on this for, what, like 46 minutes now? Just unannounced live. Sorry. I know I'm supposed to be working on my Christmas journal, but I just got distracted and I can't stop now. I was like, I'll get back to that on Monday. Something about my channel is like, I want to do things consecutively, but also sometimes I don't want to work on it. I want to do something new. So I try not to limit myself to having to go in sequence, like having to finish, like start and finish a project. I'll stop in between and do something else. So here's this row. And it looks so pretty. See, this is not straight right here. After I cut it, they ended up being not straight. But that's okay. The rest seem to be pretty straight. And it doesn't matter if it's straight or not. So that's up to you. So the next step, like I said, would be to iron it. So they look so pretty all together. Oh my God, I can't. I love it. Okay, so now we're going to cut the next row of receipt paper. Okay, so again, I'm using my receipt paper. And I didn't buy this type for any particular reason. I just saw it at the thrift store and I bought like 6 rolls for like $3 or something. So now see, my paper wants to curl. So if I run my nail through it, then it lays straight, which is awesome. Hi Mona. How are ya? All of our TVs have free view built in now, so we do get other channels free, but BBC 1 and 2, ITV channel 4 or 5 were the only channels that we used to get before we went digital. But we'll use this strip for. So I'm thinking I can chain them all together and make a cover, like another patchwork cover, another style, another technique on how to get that look, which I feel is a lot easier than how I made the video. But I didn't. We'll try it. We'll see what it looks like. Or also I can use like 2 of these little pieces right here and make like a little pocket. But eventually I'm going to use my heat and bond technique to make this into paper where I can like sew and it'll be nice and sturdy compared to using this receipt paper. So the receipt paper is just the foundation. I'm going to eventually rip it off and we'll make it into the heat and bond. We'll make it into pockets. We could also like make them into little tuck spots for a corner or something. We'll see. Right now I'm just kind of obsessed with sewing on receipt paper. Sometimes I get into that, like I'll get into just doing one part and I'll like, what am I going to do with this? I don't know, but this is fun. I have all this fun fabric and I'm just like having fun right now. And I'll worry about what it eventually turns into later. But this is just such a fun, scrappy thing that I can do without really thinking. So it's just what I got into yesterday. But then I realized, I'm like, okay, I cut up some fabric, some scraps. But then I was like, I want more selection. So I went through my bed sheet fabrics, cut out some pieces of each one. And now I have a nice little collection here of what I'm working with. So you could use scraps or you could make your own scraps. Okay, so I'm using a straight stitch and I'm doing the default setting. So it's a really short stitch, perfect to perforate, so I can cut the paper off. I can take the paper off this. And to begin, I'm going to sew the fabric on the left-hand side. And then the next part, I'm going to grab my next piece of fabric. Reminds me of paper piecing when I quilt. I don't know what it, I know what paper piecing is, but I don't remember how I'm supposed to. You can also make this into a belly band of sorts. That too. I'm not familiar with how you actually like sew those pieces together with all that paper. I don't understand that. Does it come off also? Because I see people like tucking the fabric into it, so I don't know how that works. I have not looked into that. So then you pull your next fabric off to the right, and you do kind of keep a little bit of, you tug on it a little bit so that way it makes a nice seam, nice flat seam. Oh, I forgot about this fabric right here. I have this too. And we're gonna sew the wrong side of the fabric. We're gonna sew right sides of the fabric together. And the size of the seam that you use doesn't matter. And if you're not using these for actual quilts, then the quality of your thread doesn't matter, because I'm going to be basically gluing the whole back of this part to paper. So it's not going to come loose, but if you are going to use this for something that you need to hold together for a long time, then you definitely want to use better type of thread. Okay, so let's get the next sheet, the next little piece here. Again, I cut my scraps into 2 and 2.5 inch pieces, but you could use smaller. I wouldn't suggest you use anything bigger, or wider, I should say, because you want a little scrappy look. You want to have different types of fabrics, so you don't want them to be too wide. If you don't have receipt paper, what could you use? You know what a lot of people use is phone book paper. You can use phone book paper. You could also use tissue paper. It might be a little bit, tissue paper might be a little bit harder to kind of hold together like this, you know, and tug on it and stuff. But you could also just cut up printer paper, and as long as you use a really close stitch, it'll perforate and it'll cut off. Of course, test it first before you go all wild to make sure that it doesn't rip off easily. I've done that in the past where I was going crazy at it, and then I realized, hey, either the stitch I was using was too wide and so it didn't perforate, or that paper just didn't cut off right. So definitely do a little test piece. That's what I have to say. You could use little skinny pieces like this. I was gifted some of this fabric, and I've been putting it in here because it's such pretty fabric. Again, sewing right sides together of the fabric. The seam size doesn't matter. And if you're using for junk journal purposes, you don't have to worry about back stitching. So again, I'm going to pull the fabric off to the right. Yeah, phone book pages, easier to tear away. Yeah, definitely phone book pages, I would suggest you use. For sure. So next piece. Just regular printer paper too. I bought the receipt paper because I saw some people collaging on it, and I did collage on it. That was fun, but of course, like I said, if you buy more than 2-3 rolls, it's a lifetime supply. So I mean, good luck using it up. So I'm trying to find all sorts of ways to use up this paper. I can't remember the last time I saw a phone book, right? But if you got one phone book, it'd be a lifetime supply for you. Maybe even try magazine if you have magazine paper. Any book paper that is tissuey. You know, they have stronger book paper, and then there's some book paper that's almost like Bible paper. You know what I mean? Like really thin paper. So you could use that too, really thin book paper. You could also use really old book paper. You know, the type of book paper where if you fold it in half, it breaks. Like it literally breaks. You could use old paper like that. That's another suggestion I would have. You could use a book paper for sure. Who doesn't have book paper? I've also done this type of technique. Well, this is technically a string quilt. Technically, string quilts usually use long strips, but it's the same technique as I'm doing right now. Is the packing paper too thick? Let me try it. I think one time I did it and it was, but I think it might have been because my stitch wasn't small. That's what I'm thinking, but let me try it. Let's try it on this part right here. Let's see. No, that one's too pretty. Here, this one's like almost, this fabric's almost white, so we'll just use that. So it's got very minor design on it, so it's sewing it to the right one. Just like I would on my other one. Let's see. And I'll use. Gosh, it doesn't matter this much, Daisy. I'm being way too picky here. Okay, so this one. Let's sew it, and then we'll see how it goes. Let me do one more. One more here. Oh, I sewed the wrong side down. Dang it. Okay, so let's see. Packing paper test. Yeah, okay, so last time I did this, the issue was then that my stitch was too wide, and so I didn't want to perforate. And when it perforated, it cut all my stitches out. Like, what did that mean? Okay, so there we go. You can use packing paper. Cut the packing paper into strips. I would, personally, I do 3 inches, but mine is 2 1/4 or so. So you could also go in with a seam ripper to make this process a little bit bigger, a little bit easier, I should say. And it'll just rip away then. It's good. That is good to know. Check it out. Again, you can either keep it on the packing paper if you're going to use a roll, or rip it off. That's great. Good to know. Thank you, Jen. Thank you for that suggestion. Now I know. In a tight bind, you can use packing paper. And I have a lot of packing paper. It takes me a long time to use it all up. So, hey, that's good too. Good test. Good. I mean, I did it for science. You know, I did it for science. For the children. I watched too much King of the Hill. Sorry. For the children. Okay. We are back on our receipt paper. So cut whatever type of thin paper you have into a strip. We just demonstrated the versatility of this project here. So cut whatever type of thin paper you have into a strip so that you can do this too. It doesn't have to be receipt paper. But I know a lot of people have been purchasing receipt paper to, like I said, do that whole collage on paper. Which is great, but that's just one little bit you could do. Again, this could even be a little belly band on a page. Kind of interesting. You can, when I turn this into paper, I could, oops, sorry. I could use a little piece, a bigger even piece to make it into a pocket from the side. I wish I had thicker receipt paper, but you know what? After finding out how much receipt paper is really in a roll, I don't want to buy more than one roll. So when I go to the thrift shop, maybe I'll buy the wider rolls. I don't know. If the price is right, I might. Okay, so keep on going. Again, I like to put some thinner pieces of fabric in between all the other pieces. And again, after you cut it down, the next step would be to iron it. You want to iron it flat as much as you can. And this is a good way, again, to ensure that all your seams go the same way, effortlessly. And I predict it should be a pleasurable experience to sew, since all my seams would be facing down. I think it's going to be great. So again, the size of your seam here, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's straight. Pull your next piece of fabric over. And let's lay something else down here to end this. Okay, Patricia. So again, I'm going to sew. You can kind of feel where the paper is a little bit, just a little bit. Go ahead and sew that down for the last piece here in a row. And I'm going to cut the excess fabric off here so that I can see the paper. Okay. So I'm going to kind of end it the way that I started. See that? Okay. And again, normally, the video I saw originally on how to do this, they kind of kept the roll together, but I can't imagine having to work with that. And then later I watched her updated video and she's like, yeah, I don't try and keep it in a roll anymore. She's like, I was thinking of after I cut them all down, after I iron them, trim them and then iron them, I should say, that's the order they go in. I would, maybe I'd tape the backs together so that I can kind of keep them a little bit more organized. Let's see, which one of these I could save. I could probably save these two. Oh, this one for sure, this one's a cute little piece. I'm gonna sew these together eventually, these teeny tiny little pieces. I'm gonna make a small patchwork journal, really tiny. So I'm keeping those aside because that's exciting. This is what my life has come to. I am really excited about sewing fabric to receipts. It's really the highlight of my day. I just really like the look of all the fabrics put together. It's so pretty. Again, they could be a little bit less themed. Like all of my fabric is pretty much floral. So, and some pattern, but mostly everything is floral. So yours could be a little bit crazier in color. It could be themed. It could be color block, like all different, one purple one, or you can have Christmas themed fabric that you have leftovers. This would be a great product for that. Okay, these are all too small. I like this, says Jen. You'll obsess about it too. It's just visually fun. And like I said, you can do this in steps. For a minute there, I was just like obsessing over just sewing everything together. So I was just sewing stuff and I'm like, I'll worry about the ironing. And even this whole trimming down, I'm like, I'll worry about that later. Great way. And I love it. I can't wait to figure out what to do with it as it pertains to my junk journaling. Normally, like I said, it looks like people kind of use it in between other fabrics or even as borders for their quilting blocks. So we'll see what we do with it. I don't know. We'll worry about that later. Okay, so for now, let's get another roll of receipt paper. I'm gonna try and make it like a little bit wider than my mat, just a tiny bit, just by like an inch on each side. So I can trim it down to size later. And again, this is pretty much a lifetime supply right here in one roll. Don't make the mistake I did, buy only one roll. If you can help it, give it away. I love to see it used as a cover. Yes, but I'm gonna get enough pieces sewed together. I still have to iron them. Otherwise, I'd do it right now, but I'm gonna have to iron them first. I'll probably come back once I'm done ironing them so I can put them all together for you guys for sure. I'll have an episode on that. Okay, so starting, again, I need to kind of use my nail like you would with ribbon. I'm kind of going to use my nail to flatten it up. So let's put our first piece down, fabric, right side fabric up. I'll leave a little piece here so I can visually see where the paper is when I work on this later. And for the first low block, you're going to sew to the left. And so for the next one, we are going to sew with the with the right sides fabric facing each other, and we're going to sew to the right. And we're going to sew to the right from now on. There we go. And hey, Patricia, welcome back, girl. And then we're going to pull this off to the right. Of course, it doesn't matter if they're straight, so you don't have to worry about that so much. It's not really a thought in my mind at the moment. And the seam allowance, aka the space between your fabric edge and where you sew, doesn't really matter how big you want to do it. So if you're comfortable sewing, really off over here, go ahead. Your fabric piece might just be a little bit smaller. You go ahead and do whatever makes you feel comfortable, because it doesn't really matter. That's why I love this project. That's why I like scrappy quilt techniques, I should say, because I never really make quilts. I just like to make junk journal covers with the techniques. Ooh, I still have bobbin. I'm spoiled. I'm using full bobbins now. Very spoiled. Okay, flip the fabric over here to the right. Keeps all of our seams going the same way. And I have a nice selection of fabrics. Maybe you don't, and you can alternate the fabrics. That'd be a cool look too. Maybe you can cut your strips thinner and you can have a really thin patchwork to use. I've seen that too, really, really thin pieces of fabric, which is cute. I just don't want them that small. Not for me. I love the blue, pink, and orange floral. Yeah, oh yeah, this fabric is fabulous. I love this fabric right here. It also has little birds. Okay, here it is right here. It has little birds, which are just the cutest. This fabric is so cute. But right now I have a lot of it, but I'm going to be so sad when this one's gone because it's just so pretty. I think that one, I can't remember if I bought it or if Irene, no, I think I bought it. I think I got lucky one day at the thrift shop. I want to say, if I'm wrong, Irene, I'm sorry, but I want to say I bought it at the thrift shop. Okay, so let's put this piece down right here. This is one of my fabrics that I actually adore, and it's almost gone, so I'm really sad about it. But I'm also really happy to say that I used it up, so. Also, some people have samples of it out there. What's wrong? Boo was asleep. You might have heard a bird from outside. I have my doors open and there's birds out there. Let's put this one in here. The only fabric I don't mind repeating is this black fabric here. I don't mind repeating that one a couple times on a row, at least 2 times, because it's so pretty, and I kind of want every piece to have one of those fabrics there. I just love it. I think it'd be nice. The only one repetitive fabric. I think I'll put it back over here now, just to give it some contrast to all the light fabrics I use. Hi, what will this be? Karen, hello, girl. I'm gonna chain all these pieces, all these like long pieces of paper here that I'm sewing fabric on. I think I'm gonna put them all together eventually and make a cover. Like I said before, I might make pockets out of it. There's a couple things I have ideas for, and then I'll figure it out later too. Now I just have this calling to just sew fabric. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'll figure it out later. I do a lot of projects with my, when I make things like this into paper with my heat and bond. I end up doing a couple different things. I'm also always looking out for things I could do. I could be doing. This piece right here is not even evenly cut. But when you try and make it, even, it doesn't really matter in the end. So don't be too picky about how you cut stuff. Because sometimes it doesn't really matter. Snow, oh my goodness, I can't deal with snow. I don't know about snow. I don't know. I really don't know anything about snow. I grew up in California and now I live in Nevada. So, and I don't live in the part of Nevada where it snows, because it does snow like, what, like 30, 45 minutes away in the mountains. And people live out there in their fancy houses. But I'm not interested. In snow, I can't. I couldn't deal. Okay, so did I already put a yellow one? Okay. Just flipping my fabric around, trying to find something else. I already put I have not put one of these here. Yay. This one might finish it off here. Okay, so sewing the right sides of the fabric together here. We drive up north to see the snow. I'm okay with snow for like 5 minutes, and then I don't want to be there anymore. Like, it's cool for 5 minutes, and then I'm like, okay, let's go back. I'm kind of done. I'm kind of over it. I'm in Pennsylvania, and we're having a glorious, cool fall day with beautiful foliage colors. You see, that's something I miss. I never really get into the fall mood because it doesn't really turn into fall here. There really is no fall where I live. Like I said, the cactus stays the same color all year round. And I just don't ever get into that fall mood. It just turns cold. My fall is 75 degrees. That's what I get for fall for about, what, like 2 weeks. And then it goes back to being, it goes cold. It doesn't even get like fresh for too long. It goes fresh for a week. Then we're cold, and then we're back to hot. That, and nothing really, like some trees might, change colors, but not really. Mostly I just get bald trees. If I go to Cali, it almost looks like fall. Cali also doesn't really have much of a fall season. At least I'm from Southern California, so we don't really have a winter. They also don't have a winter there. Okay. Gonna even up on this side. So yeah, I kind of go from summer to winter mood. That's why as soon as summer's over, I'm like, okay, let's make Christmas stuff, like in August. Okay, so I'll do this one. I'm going to keep this one, and I'm going to keep this one here. Kind of decide which little pieces to keep for the next project. Okay. Okay. So now we have this nice strip here. Again, the next step would be to iron, but I'll worry about that another day. I'm pretty much covered in threads. Right now I have to lit roll myself off when I get off my chair. I just like the look of all these different fabrics. Again, I mostly purchase floral fabrics. So sometimes I get a little bit of pattern in there. But mostly it's a bunch of florals. And I just really like the way they look on the strip. And it's just making me happy to do it. Again, later on, I could sew all these together and make it a long strip that I can roll up. Maybe, I don't know, I'm fine putting them away just like this, you know, it's fine. It really has the same effect as if they were all in a row. Okay. So I'm probably going to go live for another 15-20 minutes. This is definitely a product you want to do in front of the TV while you're not really, you know, thinking, or have something on in the background. I always have King of the Hill or Rick and Morty or Drag Race. So I really don't even have to look up because I already know what's going on. But I still love it. So I have something on in the background. There we go. Let's do the next one. I'll probably iron too. I gotta iron. I actually gotta iron. Okay, so I got my sewing machine back. So again, you can make these as long as you want, or you can make them exactly like the size of the cover that you're gonna make. So that is up to you. Why do you put the line through it? The line through it, like with my finger? I just kind of go like this because otherwise it doesn't lay flat. So when I cut it off the roll, that's what it does. So for me to try and sew on that, I mean, it's possible, but it's also easier to kind of drag my finger through it, and now it's flat. It's a little bit easier to sew on. Yep. Okay. Okay, we're back. So again, the first piece, I'm going to sew to the left of it. And I'm going to sew it the right side of the fabric facing up. Oops. Where's my cutter? Oops, I just cut my paper. That's okay. We will live. We will survive. Okay. So next piece of fabric. You want to sew right sides together. And we're going to sew from on the right hand side from now on. Fighting the curl is annoying, is it? Okay, because it was a tip given by the video that I watched. I just kind of been doing it. They said I make things easier, and I believe them. I chose to believe. Next piece, right hands facing each other. You do kind of want to Make sure you tug on this just a tiny bit. I've been working on I Spy quilts for my 6 grandchildren for Christmas and have lots of scraps that I don't want to trash. This is the perfect project for you. Oh, hey, Karen, if you quilt, I have a question. Do you know what could be the least expensive thread that I could use that would be quilt quality? Because I use really inexpensive thread, which is great for junk journals. But if I did want to make a quilt, what thread that is the least expensive would you suggest? If you could help me out. Because I'm not a quilter. I just use these techniques and I basically glue the back of them. And so it doesn't really matter what kind of thread. But if I did one day want to finally make a quilt, what would I use? Because one day I think I might want to make a quilt out of one of these techniques. Because my fabric is so fabulous. I would love it. Maybe I'd start something small for like my lap or something. Maybe. Let's see here. I'm not an expert. I'm a quilter only because I recycle material. Okay, cool. We are on the same page. Same level here. Same level. I buy thread anywhere and everywhere. Sorry, I can't help. Okay, well, I just don't want to, like I said, beyond junk journaling, I just wouldn't want to actually put in the effort using the same thread that as I always do, and then like it doesn't stay together. I don't know. That's like my one thing that, and I don't know anything about the whole like batting type situation, what you do afterwards. I gotta watch all that stuff, and I really want to have something that is really gonna hold together. But I appreciate it. I mean, if you find that works for you, I'd be happy. I have a ton of this thread. I have a ton of thread then. Well, see, I might ask Irene because I know she does quilting. And she also does junk journals. I don't know if she's done a quilt-like junk journal before, but maybe I'll ask her if she knows. Okay, so we'll do this over here. Again, your seam doesn't matter. So I like those kind of products. None of the seams have to match up to the next row or anything like that. Like I said, I make my fabric, I cut it into pieces that are 2 inches or 2.5 inches, just to give it a kind of a variety and not go too wide. Let's see, this will be over here. I have no idea that there was different thread for quilting. It's just you want to use like a better quality. This thread might be some polyester. And I think the best thread for quilting is cotton. And that's a little bit more expensive than thread that has polyester in it. You just want a little bit more quality thread because you're going to be actually using it, you know what I mean? As opposed to a junk journal that will kind of just sit there. It might get used here and there, you know, but for the most part, it just kind of sits around. So it's a little bit different than a blanket that gets used a little bit more roughly in the book. And also, I'm not going to be gluing down the back of this if I'm going to be doing a quilt. So I would imagine you might need maybe a little bit better. Maybe I'm wrong because I don't know. I've heard somebody say something about it when you graduate to better thread. That's what I've heard. But for my junk journaling, this thread is fine. Most thread you buy in the sewing department is good enough for that. Okay, Patricia, thank you for the tip. I don't buy my thread from there. So maybe I will when I want to make a quilt. Maybe. Trying to find the next scrappy do. I will. Already put one of those pieces there. Just kind of turning my fabric around. I haven't used this one. Haha. If I'm using very old thread, I take a yank test. If it snaps easily, no go. But Irene would definitely know, right? Have you all checked out her Instagram? That girl is a quilting machine. That girl can make some really cute looking quilts. I don't know her professional level, but it is a nice treat to see. To see her updates and stuff on it. It's really cool. Okay, so here's this one. I haven't used this one here. Cool. Normally I'd rip my fabric apart if you want to rip it apart instead of having to use, because I cut these with my rotary cutter. But if you would rather not use a rotary cutter, you can just rip the fabric into strips that you need. And that'll be fine too. You'll get probably straighter edges than if you used a rotary cutter. Okay, so there's that last piece right there. So this block is finished. Again, you end it the same way that you started. Okay? So let's trim it up. Let's see, Jen says, but I think cotton deteriorates over time. Basically, polyester is plastics and clothes that keep them from decomposing. That is a scientific fact. Angel Rose says, hi, crafty angels. How is everybody? How are you? Hi. Hi. I am having fun just doing some sewing. I just felt like sewing today. And here we are. I'll figure out what to do with it later. For now, it just looks pretty. So that's what I'm doing. I'm having a good old time here. So I got receipt paper. I got fabric scraps. I think I got a project. I think I feel a project coming up. I'll turn on the AC because I think it's getting a little warm. It still gets to be like 90, even 80 something, and some icy wants to kick on. And I'm going to let it kick on. Okay, sorry, I had to close the window. Okay, so let's get this last bit here straightened out. It's just a different technique for the patchwork, really. Here I'm pulling off the fabrics that are a little bit bigger so I can make a small patchwork later. Daisy, I put some in your inbox you may want to use. Okay, cool. I will check it out. I have a question. What is a snippet roll used for? You can make these into a belly band. I'm going to chain them all together and make a cover. I also have this idea to make them into pockets. I could also, you know what also would be cool is if I glued these, when I glue these to paper, if I, what was I going to say? Once I glue them to paper, what was I going to say? It was a good idea too, and I was like, what? Once I glue them onto paper, I could also, I was thinking I could just have them as a page in my junk journal. Just like as a pretty page. That's an idea I have. But also you can make belly bands out of them for sure. You can make pockets that are this wide and you can do the whole stitching in between. Oh, that's what I was going to say. When I turn this into paper, I can cut a couple blocks like this off and sew them in the middle of a tag to kind of have like a little quilting design. That's what I was thinking. Like, here, I have the tags next to me, actually. I have this tag, and I could use a little strip like this where I have a couple of different types of fabric. and put them here on this tag. Sew them on and kind of make like a little decorative fabric tag. Could be an idea. That's also a thought in my mind right now. But I'll figure it out later. It could be a nice background for a slow stitching project. Yes, for sure. For sure. Nice, but my idea is to make them into a patchwork journal cover. I know I already have enough to make at least one of them, but I always want to make a couple. I always go overboard and make too much of everything. And we'll figure out what we do with it alternatively later. Let's strip the sides here, and then like I said, tuck the pockets. Yes, tuck the pockets too. You can make these as wide as you want. So if you want to work with the bigger piece and have bigger, like smaller pieces that amount to a cover, you can do that. I just want the variety of fabrics. Variety. I'm looking through everybody's comments, hoping I didn't miss anybody. If I did, I apologize. My eyeballs, they're not good. Okay, so for first fabric, we are going to, I'm going to leave a little piece of paper here so I can cut it off later. And I'm going to sew the fabric right side up. And we've already come up with different alternatives to the receipt paper. Is that the paper roll you are using? Yes, this receipt here. Like I said, one of these is a lifetime supply. And they make them in wider sizes, so you could get one that's like 3 or so inches. And this one is like 2 1/4, I believe. Okay, so this is the last line here I'm gonna do. So I'm getting hungry. So I kind of want to eat something soon. Some chicken and rice maybe. Sounds good. Okay, so right side fabric together. Sew on the right hand side from now on. Yeah, receipt paper. Receipt paper. You can find them at thrift shops. You could also find them in stores if you wanted to buy brand new ones. Okay, right now that's what we need. The next piece of fabric. That is what I need. Put them here on the edge. They don't have to be straight. It doesn't have to be a straight stitch or anything like that. It could be a little bit off like that. That's fine. You don't have to be too worried about this. Fold our fabric off to the right. Again, that one's a little crooked, but that's fine. We'll live. We will live. Here's our next fabric. You could also like move the fabric up if you want this little part of the fabric to show. So that's why I cut the pieces a little bit longer than I need to. The size of your seam does not matter. I had one of those huge breakfast burritos you get from a food truck. Hey, the bacon is always right on those. That sounds good, a breakfast sandwich. I mean, a breakfast burrito. I've not had one in a minute. I'll have to go get one. Thank you. Thank you for that. Next fabric. Okay. So here, let's put in our next fabric. It's really easy, really visually fun project that I'm just compelled to make it. If you come back to my channel, you might see me using it for something. But right now, just having fun sewing all these pretty fabrics together. It's just a fun little exercise. If you got scraps, this is a perfect project. If you don't have receipt paper, you figured out that you could use just anything, any thin piece of paper, tissue paper, packing paper, really thin book paper, cut it into strips, even printer paper, just cut it into a strip. Actually, you know what's good? Notebook paper. If you have a notebook paper, like even lined paper, that is actually thinner than printer paper. So if you have lined book paper and it's been there forever, go ahead and grab it for this project. Cut it into strips. First, do a little test on it. As long as you use a really short stitch, like this is default setting. This is probably what you would use just to put fabrics together. So default setting on the straight stitch, the smallest stitch, should be able to perforate. But of course, do a test. You don't want to do all this work and then find out that it doesn't come off the paper. I've done that before. I think it was because I used a wider stitch. I want to say that was my issue. But there's a lot of different papers that you could use for this project, as long as they can cut off easily and you are free to use it. But definitely one tool that you should have for this project is a cutting mat and a rotary cutter if you want to make your life a little easier. But you could, of course, just go ahead and cut this with your scissors. There, you trim it off with your scissors there. That works just fine too if you don't want to. But it does make it a little bit easier to do it on a rotary cutter. But again, not necessary to have. What is necessary to have is a nice selection of fabrics. Alternatively, you could repeat the fabrics, alternate the fabrics. Like a pattern, that would be kind of cool. Maybe start with a different one every single time, so that way they kind of offset a little bit. And when you make rows out of it, it doesn't have the same colors next to each other. Kind of staggered, I guess I would say, if you have only a couple different fabrics. Definitely stagger them. Trying to get some different fabrics here. Here we go. Why use paper at all? Because it just makes it easier to hold together. And you could just sew them all together, but it just makes it easier to kind of fold the fabric over. And also for storage. For storage purposes too. Let's see here. Just if you're like a top sewer, like an Olympic sewer, maybe you don't need the paper, but I'm a beginner. I'm a beginner, so it helps me out. I'm not a professional sewer, so it just helps me get it all together. Chris, hi Chris, you caught the end. I'm hungry. I'm hungry and I need to log off. Let's see here. I just had to do this though. I just had to sew this fabric and I was gonna do that anyway. So I was like, let me get my camera and we can make a little video. Wait, I already used that fabric. I have not used this fabric though. Screen fabric. Right sides together here. There we go. Flip it over. I don't think I could do this with just fabric, with like flipping it over. I'd have to iron it. I might. Plus, I have a lot of this stuff too. Plus, I just have a lot of this receipt paper. Time for me to go. This is fun. Thanks, Davey. Bye, Karen. All right, so I'm pretty much done. I'm going to trim this up. I need to eat, y'all. I need to eat. Okay, so let's trim it up. one last time, y'all. It's really satisfying to trim them, actually. It's really nice to see the straight roll. Again, you can do this in steps. You can sew all day and then worry about trimming them tomorrow. Could be steps. I'm going to cut over here. Okay, so all these pieces are too small for me to use, so I'm going to toss them. You know what sounds good right now? Some honeydew. It sounds delicious. I got chicken and rice. So. Okay, so next side here. Again, I linked this tool here in the chat before, and it's going to be in the description box. So I got them off Amazon. Awesome combination with the handle and the long quilting ruler. It's just the best. It's just the best, you guys. Okay, and then right here at the very end, I'm going to trim it so I have some paper. Okay, so you can use any paper that will easily perforate. So definitely test before you put in a lot of time into using a certain type of paper. Okay, you guys, I will see y'all on Monday, just tomorrow. I'll get back to my Christmas journal. I still have a half a signature or so to decorate, and we'll get going on that, and then we'll see when I come back to continue work on this project. You'll see me work on it throughout the course of my channel here. So thank you guys so much for joining me. If you do need junk journal printables, you can check out my store, TsunamiRose.net. Thank y'all for chatting with me. Thank y'all for keeping me company, and I will see y'all tomorrow. Do subscribe to my channel if you like junk journal videos. I pretty much post a new video every single day. Okay, you guys, have a good weekend. Bye.